Wells question. My pastor Wells said that in the event of a shelter-in-place order that we could no longer gather in the event of groups of 10, we could celebrate the Lord's Supper in one of three ways. At home by ourselves because of the universal priesthood of believers. I'll just say right here, this is what I believe to be the fruit of the distinction, the difference. You want to know why we're different, Wells and LCMS. It is this on paper. Now, granted, I've already just talked about how the LCMS has guys doing this very kind of thing, okay? But what you have here is a confession of the theological connection point that has led to a lot of this, which is denial, ultimately, of the office of the holy ministry on the basis of there being a so-called priesthood of all believers, which I don't think that there isn't one. I believe that all believers are priests to the Lord in faith. But I do not believe that that countermands any office that God has created: man, woman, slave, master, or worker and master, child, father, and in that way then pastor, shepherd, preacher, whatever you want to call the Gottesdienst. Well, here, see, they kind of said, well, the Gottesdienst isn't really a thing. Exactly. Right. And so, so the ministry of Gottesdienst, the office of Gottesdienst isn't really a thing. So this is the difference. Okay. Now, what I'm saying is in Wells, I think this is on paper. And the LCMS, it's not on paper. We're practicing it. They confess it. Some of them don't practice it. Some of them believe what we believe. How we reconcile that, Wells, ELS, in the midst of the dark ages we're in, I don't know. I'd love to be on a team with guys who I don't have to look over my shoulder at and wonder when they're going to shoot me in the back. You know, I'm not talking about leaving the LCMS. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm not talking politics at all. I'm talking about understanding what we're up against culturally and biblically, and not being afraid to confess beside each other, right? Which, granted, then, I mean, the only way to do that is to get the Wells and the LCMS to talk to each other about this issue, this one. Right here, not what we agree upon, but what we know we don't agree upon, or at least our paper documents say we don't agree upon. Until we handle that, where else, I can't go to you because I can't accept what I think is a system, a dogmatic system that brought to this. Because I think that's an authentic read on the removal of the 3 questions from the Small Catechism, Article 5, chief parts, which, yes, are not in 1580, but definitely were written in Luther's lifetime, and definitely reflect the rest of the Book of Concord. The removal of that is a sticking point, is it not? Yes? And this is where it leads. I tell you, my friends and brothers, this is where it gets you. The line is clear. So we could meet online, he said, where we would consecrate the elements, which are any unleavened bread and wine we have available. I'm glad he didn't say grape juice. I'm glad you guys are using wine. That's good. He could call each family on the phone and consecrate the elements on the phone. That's a lot of work, but not really any different at the end of the day than these things. Now, these options sound quite right to me, but what would a biblical answer be? The biblical answer is trust your pastor at this time and decline the sacrament in this way. I disagree with this theologically. I think it's wrong. I've already said that a lot in other places. I don't want to call it your particular pastor. I don't want to send you at him and say, well, Pastor Fisk says, no, I mean, it doesn't matter what I say. He's your pastor. That's what your church teaches. And I've said already, look, your teaching on the office of the ministry is, in fact, authentically this. How it impacts your understanding of the sacrament? Well, it shouldn't really, but it did, because you basically removed the need for the office of the ministry entirely, right? And so now you can just have anybody who's at home who is representing Christ do the function of the office, and you have it, your church, wherever you want to be. This has been our argument from the start in the Wells LCMS theological divide. There is the issue of us liberalizing way back in the day, but I think we repented of that one, right? I'm pretty sure we did, officially, at least. You know, there was a big walkout and all that. So in any case, I've answered before. What would the answer be, though? I mean, your answer is to trust your pastor, or to go find a pastor that doesn't teach what he teaches. He's going to teach this. If you're Wells, you believe this, kind of. I don't know if you believe in the result, but you believe in the premise. So you believe it. But personally, I would not take the sacrament that way, because I have no confidence that it is the sacrament in any of these ways. It could be. There's all sorts of things that God can do, because he can do everything, right? God can make a box that's too big for God to fit into. No, he can't. Yes, he can. Chicken, egg, I know. But still, like, he's God, so I get to say that one. God can make a box he's too big to fit into. And then he can fit in it, too, if he wants to, even though he was too big to fit into it before. He can do all of that. And so I'm not questioning God's ability to transmogrify The substance of the bread and wine, but not the accidents of the bread and wine, into the substance of Jesus, which is kind of what you're believing it's really all about at this moment. Not to be transubstantiation pushing on you, but it kind of is what you're using a little bit as a belief system, right? That the magical words of the priests would go over the interwebs. Now, granted, you've got it at home as well, but I have no confidence that in any of these, whether it's the magical word of the priest on the interwebs on the phone, or whether it is the magical words spoken by you, the father and priest of the home, a believer and baptized member and warrior of Zion, I have no confidence because the designated and official keys of the ministry to feed the sheep are not present physically with you and are being denied their existence to some extent as a reflection again of an ultimate denial of what that binding meal does to us when we eat it together.